This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. And man, do we have an important show for you today. And the reason for that is all these wimps are out. I mean, these people out there are just bitching and moaning. They haven't got the check. They're waiting for the check. And they go, well, there's no opportunities, no jobs. What? I feel for them. I feel for them. But the reason they struggle is because they've been trained to be employees. And an employee mindset is very, very different than an entrepreneur's mindset. One of the big differences is, when I worked with my rich dad, he wouldn't pay me. And it drove my poor dad, a school teacher, nuts. He says, you got to pay people. And it was out of that was the first kind of big argument. And finally, you look at Tiger Woods, he didn't get paid for years. He was an entrepreneur. He practiced. Then he hit the big bucks. And so that's kind of the entrepreneur's mindset. So it's a very important show today because you're going to find out if you're ready to transition out of the employee mindset into the entrepreneur's mindset. I will take laps around the rosary beads tonight for you because it is one tough journey, without money, without support and making mistakes and falling down and standing up. It is one journey. So I'm very happy about this show. We have two great guests. Kevin Harrington, you may know him. This guy he's a legend in his own. Everybody out there, he has sold more stuff than any guy I know. My house is filled with his stuff. And also Mark Timm, who is his mentee. So just like Rich Dad was my mentor, I was my Rich Dad's mentee. So they have a great book out. It's called Mentor to Millions, The Secrets of Success in Business and Beyond. So all of you guys out there who are wondering, where's your $600 COVID check? You may want to buy a book instead and study it. So welcome to the show, gentlemen. And I do have a complaint, Kevin.
Yes.
As I was at my friend's house across the street from me. We didn't social distance, but we had a good time. And this guy is a mega millionaire, and he's loaded with your stuff.
Oh, good. Hey, I have a credit card then, I guess, right?
He always says his wife is saying he can't sleep because he's an entrepreneur, right? He's always putzing around. He says at late night these infomercials come on. So here's this. He just loads up. And then the last thing, my complaint against you, Kevin, is you had that As Seen on TV, and in Honolulu they had this As Seen on TV show. It was my first stop.
Oh yeah.
Your infomercials or whatever you call those things are so effective. I couldn't get them out of my mind. So that's my complaint. You cost me a lot of money.
I love your complaints. Do you have any more? Come on, let's hear some more good stuff here. That's and funny that you call them late night infomercials. That's when I started back in the early 80s. I was watching TV and all of a sudden the channels went dark because it was late night and I was buying up all that late night time back in the early 80s. So they started late night, but then the TV stations got so used to making money that they would put us on prime time because they'd make even more money on prime time. So it changed, the industry changed over time.
Good. And Mark, welcome to the show. Why don't you give me your experience of what it's like having a mentor? Such an infamous mentor as Kevin Harrington as your teacher.
It's pretty phenomenal. And we get asked a lot, how do you find the right mentor? And I got to tell you, there's a lot of people out there that look and say, I could never have him as a mentor. I could never get this person as a mentor. And I'll tell you what, they don't get them because they don't ask. And so people like Kevin are willing to mentor, but here's the catch. If you want a Kevin Harrington to be your mentor, if you want a rich dad to be your mentor, you darn well better be ready to be their best student because they don't have time. They don't have time to teach and you not do anything. And so I went so far as to when Kevin said he would mentor me, I moved my family for a short period of time from Indiana down to St. Petersburg just to be in proximity to him to catch whatever he was throwing my way. I doubled down. I became his best student. Not only did we get into a mentor-mentee relationship, but we developed a know-like-trust equation with each other, and we started doing business together. We started starting businesses together because of that mentor-mentee trust factor that we built.
That's amen, amen, amen. Because I've had people want to say, would you teach me? And then they argue with me. Well, why am I here? So Kevin, why don't you tell us about what it's like? Well, tell us how you got into the late night, as seen on TV business. Because it blows me away how powerful your infomercials were, or your products were.
I was a young entrepreneur going all the way back to the early 80s. So almost, 38, 40, close to 40 years ago. And I had just ordered cable television. And in the beginning of cable, they only had 30 channels. So it was pretty amazing, though. If you think back 40 years ago, I'm watching ESPN, 24 hours of sports, and MTV was 24 hours of music, CNN, all news. I got to channel 30. It was the Discovery Channel, and there was nothing on. So I called the cable company and I said, hey, I love this cable thing that I've got now, but I only have 29 channels broadcasting. There's nothing on channel 30. They said, oh, Discovery is a brand new channel. There's nothing on 6 hours a day because they can only afford an 18-hour a day production schedule. So I said, 6 hours of nothing? And they said, yes. I said, if I have something to put on there, would you be interested? They said, come on down. We're all ears. So within a week, I was down there and they said, just bring us stuff to put into that downtime. And I started bringing kitchen products but then I had to produce them. But that was the beginning, really. You got to get the time. Now you can put the products in there. So Jack LaLanne and the Juicer, George Foreman, Tony Little and the Gazelle, and all those kind of things you mentioned earlier.
You did those guys?
What's that?
You did Tony Little and those
guys?
Oh,
yeah. I did Tony Little's Gazelle. I did a dozen projects with Tony. We did the Jack LaLanne Juicer. And I have a new project with George Foreman right now. It's called the Knockout Pain Cream, by the way, with CBDs added. So, because there's a guy that's been through a lot of pain, right? So, yeah, we like celebrities, but we don't always use celebrities. But that was the beginning, the early 80s, as seen on TV.
Well, I remember Tony Little. People may not know him. He is a character. I mean, you couldn't help but watch him.
And now he's doing he's on these TV commercials for Geico, and there's a new one now for Cricket Wireless, and he's going across the stage on his Gazelle, right? Which is an amazing product that I did with Tony about 15 years ago. So it's great how they bring things back.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Why did you agree to mentor Mark?
So this is a greig story, and you know and met the great Zig Ziglar. So Zig was a mentor to Mark, and Zig was a mentor to me. And so when I was talking to Tom Ziglar about doing some deals, Tom said, you have to meet Mark Timm. He's an amazing mentee of Zig's. And so as Mark and I talked, it became very apparent that we were going to be able to do a mentor relationship. And Mark was looking to develop some things inside the Ziglar family. So we were introduced by the son of a mentor to both of us and have thrived ever since. So it's been pretty cool.
So Tim, it sounds like you've always looked for mentors or teachers.
Yeah, I was so blessed to have a mentor early in life. Zig Ziglar, literally, I met him on stage. He put his arm around me and said, I want you to come to Dallas, Texas, and be my special guest at a Born to Win conference. Now, Born to Win back then was the CEO mecca of, motivation, and he trained all these Fortune 500 CEOs. I'm his guest. And so from that early on, I saw that when you attach yourself to a mentor, the book is called Mentor to Millions. People think that's millions of dollars. It's actually impact. If you've got a product, purpose, or passion that the world needs and you want to get it to millions of people, the fastest path is through a mentor, because you're limited in what you can do with the information you have. But you find the right mentor like a Zig Ziglar, or in my case, a Kevin Harrington. I'd never grown a business over $10 million. One of the reasons I was attracted to Kevin is because he has 20 businesses that have done over $100 million. And I'm like, I've got to learn to scale. I've got a limiting belief in how far I can go. It didn't take long hanging out with Kevin Harrington for me to realize those zeros were there all along. I just couldn't see them. He could see them. And I'm now in years into our relationship, and we unpack this all in the book. I'm on my way to my first $100 million business, and I wouldn't have been on that path if it wasn't for Kevin Harrington. So luckily, I learned the value of mentorship, the exponential impact of membership when I was a young man, and I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm still looking for mentors. And I think everybody should have a mentor in their life. One of the secrets of the mega successful is they have mentors, and you should also become a mentor. So I'm now becoming a mentor to people who need what I've learned from my mentors. So you need mentors, and you need to be a mentor.
Well, congratulations, because Zig, the first time I ever launched Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was a new project of mine. He and I were on stage together. And
really?
Yeah, and I had gone, this is in Malaysia and Singapore, and I got out and I got stung by some malaria bug. Ooh. And I couldn't stand up. So they had to like prop me up on stage, pumping me full of whatever they pump you full of. And Zig was the most supportive guy. You know, he was amazing. Just a saint, just a giver. But I got to add my 2 bits in here, is because I think the mistake that people make is they go back to school and they find people who are not successful. They're called college professors. Talk about losers. You know, because my whole family, Poor Dad's side, they're all college professors, and they're so afraid of their own shadow. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't you agree with that, Kevin? It's like they're not real. They suppress your spirit.
I was a sophomore in college. I had a business that I started my freshman year. I was doing heating and air conditioning installations. I uncovered a lead generation tactic that was amazing. We got the names of all the new homeowners in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up. And we called them and said, don't touch that furnace until we come out and give you a free safety check. It's a new home, and we'll show you how to operate that furnace. Well, we were getting, and I was a freshman in college, getting 20 new customers a week. And so then I would go to class and listen to the professor tell me about sales. And I said, have you actually ever sold anything, professor? He said, no, I'm just a teacher. I don't do this. I just teach how to do it. And I'm like, well, it's not accurate because I'm doing it every night when I leave this class. And so, what did I do, Robert? Dropped out of college. Okay. I'm like, I'm not proud necessarily, but my mom was upset, but I'm a college dropout. You know, it is what it is.
Congratulations. Once again, the name of the book is Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business and Beyond. I just want to say this much, because this COVID thing is on. It's going to be with us for a while. There's millions of 30 million Americans are unemployed. They're waiting for their $600 check.
Yeah.
And there's millions out there. But the millions are between their ears. So I'd highly recommend you get that book, because as an entrepreneur, there is so much more opportunity today simply because the Federal Reserve Bank is printing trillions. And if you can't get your hands on a couple of trillion or 100 million or whatever it is, the problem is you. So when we come back, we'll be talking more to Kevin Harrington, the fantastic entrepreneur of As Seen on TV, where a lot of my money went, and also Mark Timm, mentee. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Fantastic program today, because all of you, they're waiting for your COVID check. This is the program for you, because you're a loser. I mean, my God, why wait for 600? Why don't you work for like 6 million or something? But anyway, we have 2 special guests, Kevin Harrington and Mark Timm. Their latest book is Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business and Beyond. And one more time, you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, or YouTube. And please leave a review whenever you listen. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because we're an education company. And if you listen to this program a second and third time, you'll remember it 4 times more, which is your greatest asset is your brain, especially if you're waiting for that $600 check or afraid of being unemployed soon. This is the greatest opportunity. This book, this program is the greatest opportunity you can have. So you can listen to this program again at richdadradio.com, but more importantly, if you have friends, family, and business associates, this is the program to listen to, but also get the book because the Fed is printing trillions. And you don't have any of it? I think you're the problem. So with that, it's Kevin Harrington and Mark Timm, and the book is Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business and Beyond. So Mark, tell me what's in the book.
Yeah, so I'm going to connect it to a place that everybody listening can relate to. And that is, I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing and the experience I had when I read your book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it really chronicled your life and your experience with your Rich Dad and Poor Dad and that mentorship relationship that you had with the Rich Dad. That is this book in modern times. The book is actually chronicles my life and a period of years of Kevin Harrington, the original shark from Shark Tank, agreeing to mentor me. And it goes all the way back to the beginning of our early days in our relationship and me figuring out, as Zig Ziglar said, you can change where you're at and what you're doing just by changing one thing. And that's what you put into your mind. I didn't change. My family didn't change. My circumstances didn't change. But Kevin put new things into my mind, and he did it through stories and anecdotes of his life and his experiences and a lot of his failures and how he got stronger from those failures. And we unpack all of that. There's so many stories in this book of our traveling together and the stories that were told and the lessons that were learned. But it starts out with this entrepreneur. The book begins with an entrepreneur, me, sitting at the end of my driveway, not wanting to go home. Now, the only reason you should not want to go home as an entrepreneur is because maybe you went bankrupt, you had a horrible deal. I was sitting at the end of my driveway not wanting to go home because I just had an awesome day as an entrepreneur. I crushed it. And I'm sitting at the end of my driveway not going home because I didn't want the euphoria to end. I knew as soon as I got home, I'd be hit with chaos and confusion, and my two worlds didn't line up at all. And that was the beginning of this journey with Kevin. And so not only does he teach me how to scale way beyond my own belief in this book, but I also learned how to take everything that I'm learning and not just apply it as an entrepreneur, but I bring it back home. We actually end every chapter by taking the key lessons in the chapter and me applying it, showing how I applied it at home. So if you're out there and you're saying, man, I don't have my business yet, this will jumpstart you to start your business. But you get to chapter 5 and you're learning some advanced entrepreneurial tactics and you're like, man, my business isn't ready for that. You can apply those at home. If you want to scale your home, I'm telling you something, you start crushing it at home. You start experiencing relationship success and bottom line building at home. Everything in life gets easier and gets better and gets more exciting. And so the book is a duality. It chronicles me and Kevin and our relationship. We teach people how to scale their businesses and also scale their relationships at home. And we didn't know how timely it was. We spent about 2 years on this project, but right now, people need these lessons. They need mentors more than they've ever needed them in their lives, because as you said, there's trillions out there. You just need somebody that knows what tree to go shake the branch and it'll fall all over you. But if you're not asking somebody, it's on you.
Amen, brother.
Wow.
So again, the book is called Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in a Business and Beyond. And the thing that's really, really good about it, it's a storybook, not a textbook. And, and exactly as we were saying, is every time I went back for my MBA, I think I lasted 6 months. I mean, those guys should be shot. I mean, I asked my accounting teacher, I said, are you an accountant? And he says, I have a master's in accountancy. I said, that's not the question. Are you an accountant?
Right.
He says, I have a master's in accountancy. And I was a Marine pilot at the time. I'm sitting there in my flight suit. I'm getting spit on because, they were spitting on Vietnam vets at that time, and all his classmates, all my classmates are a bunch of communist kids, you know. I'm sitting there going, holy mackerel, and I got a fake teacher, you know. Yeah. So, Kevin, what's in the book? Why should people read this book?
Well, you mentioned storybook. We tell a lot of stories. And for example, one of the stories I talk about, in May of this year, COVID was raging, still is. And we had a little company that was public. We had taken this company from zero up to the stock price of about $4 a share. And the company was worth now at that point. This is a energy drink company called Celsius. It's a healthy energy. And so the company was worth in the neighborhood of, we grew it to $300 million from scratch. Now, let me tell you what happened from May to July. Because we had a focus, and here again, this mentoring process, when I got involved with the company, I said, Monster and Red Bull sell in retail stores. We need to have a direct-to-the-consumer division. This is what I do. I sell products direct to the consumer. So Celsius put together a direct-to-the-consumer campaign with using influencers and celebrities, and we brought Flo Rida and Khloe Kardashian, and then all these fitness influencers. And during COVID, when people couldn't find the product, they were buying it direct to the consumer. Our sales went through the roof. And what happened to the stock? It went from $4 to $15. It's now $1 billion company because they implemented direct to the consumer strategies. And so this is what I mentor people to do today. If you're not in direct to the consumer, you need to be in direct to the consumer. Go find something that you can sell. Again, don't wait for the $600 check. Get off your ass and go do something, right? Go make some money. Go find a product or a service that you can put out there and build into some kind of a nice business and make some profits.
Yeah, what I say, you know how Trump always says is to drain the swamp. I think the purpose of your book is to drain your brain. You know, and whenever I meet somebody who's struggling financially, I'm going, how can you struggle financially? They're printing trillions. And the reason is you went to school and you're taught fear and you're taught scarcity and you're taught the fear of failing. Or like I said, you know, where's my paycheck? You know, where's my paycheck? People cannot go a week without their effing paycheck. That's what that $600 is for. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true, Kevin?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you need a mind shift. And again, you know, that's what happens in Mentor to Millions book. We teach you how to put the right mindset on. And as Mark said, a good mentee, and I've had plenty that weren't good ones. Mark, probably my best ever student because he actually wanted to put my recommendations into practice and into his daily life. And that's the key.
Hey, Kevin, you ever have you spend your time and effort explaining to your mentee, and they say it won't work. They haven't even tried it yet. You know, as a Marine, that's when the gun comes out. I go, why am I here? You know, why am I talking to this idiot? Yeah, they got to drain their brain first. So, Mark, what are some of the lessons you've learned specifically from Kevin?
Yeah, I realized that I had a lot of limiting beliefs as an entrepreneur. I realized that I was standing in my own way. When it came to my businesses, I was the cap on top of the jar, bouncing my head up against it. And so Kevin basically taught me a concept that I like to call exponential thinking. Now, I joke a lot, and I talk about this in the book. I say that every time I'm with Kevin, he doesn't have a plus sign on his calculator, not on his phone, not anywhere. Plus signs have been deleted from his vernacular or his exercise. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that so many people teach linear thinking about finances, 6%, 7%, 8%, 5%. And so Kevin is an exponential thinker. If it doesn't multiply, then it doesn't happen in his world. It's got to multiply. And I was linearly growing businesses instead of multiplying businesses. And there's ways to multiply your staff. You know what I would do, Robert? I would hire people I could afford. And Kevin was like, why would you do that? And we have a whole chapter about this. People hire who they can afford instead of who is going to take their business to the next level. You know, Kevin hired, he's like, I would rather have a $10 million accountant for 10 hours a week than a $1 million accountant for 60 hours a week because he's only going to get me to $1 million. So give me somebody that's going to get me to $10 million, $100 million. Let me just have 10 hours of their time, or give them some equity, some skin in the game. That's exponential thinking. Hire who's going to get you where you need to go. And many times he hired people without even paying them because his story was so compelling. They wanted to get on board, and they got rewarded later, and got rewarded in a massive way. So we limit ourselves by saying, I've got this much money. I can only buy this much product. I can only hire these people. Total limiting beliefs, totally the wrong way to look. I just started thinking exponentially in the businesses I've got. My business right now, e-commerce, I already had an e-commerce business. I ended up selling it because it was a linear business. After meeting Kevin, I started a new one 2 years ago, and it's already doing more than my first one. It's the one on its way to $100 million because I'm doing it exponentially. Here's the catch. I had 50 employees in my last one. I have 5 in this one, and I will do 10 times as much business because I learned how to be exponential in how I scale the business. I was limited by those 50 employees. I thought I couldn't grow unless I added 10 more employees. I wasn't thinking exponentially. We unpack that in the book as well. So there's just story after story. This is not a how-to book. This is a how we did it, and you can too. You read this book, and every single person that's read this book sits there and goes, I can do this. Instantly, they're saying, I can do this. This is not intimidating. I not only could do it, I should do it, I will do it. And that's exactly the kind of book that we wanted. We want a book that people say, I'm going to read a chapter, and they can't put it down until they read the whole thing.
Yeah, so final words, Kevin. I just want to say they're going to print trillions, and you're looking for 600. Something's wrong with you. Final words, Kevin.
So thank you. I really appreciate having us on, and I think that for me, over my years, Mark has talked about it, how having a mentor like myself, Zig Ziglar, has impacted his life in a positive way. I also have had many mentors. What I say to anybody out there that is dealing with this COVID and focused on that $600, forget about that. Open your mind to opportunities. And also, I say having a mentor for me is like creating a dream team in your business, right? I have mentors and dream team members in finance, in legal, in personal investing. I'm not a smart guy. I didn't graduate from college, right? So get your own dream team, make it happen.
That's exactly what we teach here. You know, like I was a dumb shit in school, but I have the smartest guys around me.
There you go.
The hard part is getting them to operate as a team. You know, because in school you're taught to be the smartest guy. Well, thank God I didn't have that problem. I always sat next to the smartest girl at test time and cooperated. And I do the same thing today. So I have, they're called my advisors. They're my dream team. We've come through hell together because there's been a lot of fake people who are there just for the cash, but not to be a part of the team. Yeah. Anyway, I want to thank the two of you. Thank you for your contribution. Hey, Kevin, I'll tell you one funny story. I was at my neighbor's house, and he bought, I don't know if it was your product or not, but he was showing me this glove. And he says what sold him was they had boiling water, and you put the glove on, and you put your hand in the boiling water.
Yes.
He says, it doesn't work. His hands are all burned.
Careful what you do, man. From those saying, see the TV. We look for magical, transformational type products,
yeah.
and that one obviously. By the way, that might be the of glove or something. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But,
well, it's no difference. If you take this magic pill, you'll lose 50 pounds tonight. You go. You know, I mean, people call in. You know that. They won't believe it.
They do.
Yeah. So anyway, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for writing your book. It's a timely book. And all of you people waiting for your $600 check, I get this book with the $600. Anyway, thanks very much, gentlemen.
Hey, man. Thank you so much. Take care.
And then we'll come back. We'll be going to final wrap up on what these gentlemen are talking about. I agree 100% because I wouldn't be here without mentors. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. I want to thank Kevin Harrington. He's a mentor, and Mark Timm, mentee. Their book is Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in the Business and Beyond. As we said, those of you waiting for your $600 COVID check, buy the book instead. because the problem's inside your head. There's so much money out there. They're going to print, they estimate another $3 trillion in the next few months. And you're waiting for 600 of it? There's something wrong inside that brain of yours. Anyway, you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, or YouTube. And you can leave a review whenever you want to listen. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because of one reason. We're an education company. You listen to this program again, mind may open up even more to the trillions of dollars that are out there. Most importantly, if you have friends, families, or business associates, ask them to listen to this program and discuss it. Because oftentimes your biggest problem is right next to you. It's your husband, wife, brother-in-law, business partner who thinks small. So anyway, this is a very important program because they're going to print trillions and you're waiting for 600. There's something wrong with you. Anyway, I'm going to just complete this show and talk to Sarah. Is that what I talk about all the time?
Absolutely.
Is billions?
Yeah.
I don't talk about making another couple of bucks.
Right.
Rich Dad right now is sitting on $1 billion opportunity. Can you guys see that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that's what we're working on. What's it like in the thinking process and the discussions?
Well, I think it goes back to when we first started this discussion about growing the company and really expanding our message was now's our time. We have a big opportunity sitting in front of us. How do we take advantage of it?
How do you multiply, not add?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's called leverage. And the leverage starts in our brain and creativity.
Yep. And I think it was Mark that mentioned the limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves that really prohibits us from moving forward. And I think this company has been around for 20 years, almost 30 years. So now's the time to shift and move. Like stop doing what we've been doing and take advantage of what we can.
No. Look, I designed the company the way it is. The problem is I had executives come in who wanted a paycheck. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I had several of them. All they wanted was that paycheck. Yeah. They could not think, but they had their master's degrees and all that stuff. Anyway, so that's really the issue here is because I've only had mentors. One of my greatest mentors of all, the reason I took 3 companies public, most guys haven't taken any company public, much less built a company. But his name was Frank, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Frank, I want to be your, teach me." And he says, and he argued back and forth. He was already 85. Mm-hmm. This is 20-something years ago. And he says, finally he said, "How bad do you want me to teach you?" And I said, "Really bad?" He says, "You're on a plane tonight to South America." Mm-hmm. I didn't say, "Well, you can pay for the ticket." And we were just starting Rich Dad at the time, and we had we were shooting a video in Texas. So I had to call Kim, and I says, "Kim, you have to shoot that video by yourself. I'm on a plane to Peru tonight." And when I came back, I climbed to 17,000 feet looking at gold mines. I didn't even know what gold mines were. Just looking at them. And I came back to Frank, and I said, "Frank, the projects will never work. I mean, this, again, the evaluation." And he's like 85 years old. He just snickers and says, "I know that. I just wanted to find out how bad you wanted to learn." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those are the guys that have taught me. And that's why I would highly suggest you get that book, Mentor to Millions, Secrets of Success in Business and Beyond, because today the Fed is printing trillions and millions are waiting for $600. There's something deeply wrong inside of them. So thank you all for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show, and party on.